The department produced its first annual report on Plan 2022 activities in April 2019. The department is planning to have the second annual report for release next month. Mr. Speaker, yesterday at my press conference, I pointed out that the two long-term adaptive strategies in Plan 2022 will be the focus this year, namely Strategy 5.3.5 that states, to ensure college and career readiness, we will review the current structure of our schools, primary, middle, and senior, and revise for maximum student success, including the consideration of special school designs to meet unique student needs or interests. Strategy 5.3.5. Strategy 1.1.4.1 states, we will establish specialized schools in performing arts, science and technology, STEAM, sports, trades, and e-learning, or the projected needs of the community. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to share with my honorable colleagues the way forward for the execution of these two long-term strategies as it relates to, one, the hiring of a system transformation consulting firm, and two, the role of key stakeholders in this transformational process. Let me start with the hiring of a system transformation consulting firm. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the depth and breadth of the complexity of our public education system and its entities, during April and June 2019, the ministry hosted all-day colloquial meetings with the Department of Education technical officers and representatives of the Board of Education, Public Works Estate Section, the Cabinet Office Policy Strategy Section, and the Bermuda College, with the objective of developing a proposed vision for school redesign, including options for phasing out middle schools. The colloquium included presentations in the areas such as school enrollment historical trends, the physical state of our public schools, the need to reinvent teaching, learning, and administration, school enrollment projections to 2026, harnessing parent and community engagement, the current and capital costs of maintaining public school buildings, and new builds and the use of existing school buildings for redesign options. There was a consensus on the challenges faced and the opportunities needed to create improved programs and educational experiences for all of our students. A new quality of quality instruction, delivery of public education services that provide meaningful value and educational benefits with a budget provided, and strong leadership for student success. Mr. Speaker, the ministry could have answered these questions alone, but preferred a more inclusive route, one that included taking input from a small group, but knowledgeable and influential group of stakeholders with a close relationship to our public education system. The input obtained, in addition to further research and consideration, led to a decision to utilize an existing school redesign methodology and process as executed in other jurisdictions, but one that was tailored to Bermuda. However, in light of the existing priorities and delivery responsibilities of technical officers in the Department of Education, it was determined to issue a request for proposal for the procurement of a consultancy service for school redesign methodology and the introduction of specialized or signature schools. The RFP emphasized the need to contract a consulting firm with the requisite qualifications and proven experience in school public school system in making the shift from 3-tier to 2-tier system. Mr. Speaker, while architecture and the design of buildings may come to mind to some, in broad strokes, system and school redesign refers not only to the structure of the school system and our schools, but more importantly to what happens within our school buildings, which includes high quality leadership and teaching for our students, curricula and programs that are diverse and meaningful to all our students, positive school climates and cultures, physical environments that optimize learning and support and challenge the potential of students, and involving and engaging students, families, and staff in the development and implementation process for school design and redesign. Mr. Speaker, yesterday in my press conference, I also shared that the ministry has contracted with the consulting firm Innovation Unit Australia New Zealand Limited, an organization that is based in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, and which has the requisite qualifications. With a proven track record of more than 15 years experience co-designing processes and methodologies for educational systems. The 7-member team that comprises of Innovation Unit are a diverse group of innovation and content experts, researchers, and service designers with decades of educational experience in a range of contexts that include teaching, school leadership, policy development, implementation, system leadership, resource development, educational research, and learning and school design. The consultancy will commence at the end of March and extend until the school year that starts September 2022, roughly 2.5 years. This year, an estimated $950,000 has been budgeted for the overseas consultancy. Mr. Speaker, this consultancy firm brings the diversity of experience to the table, which will help us create a unique Bermuda-based solution school system that will be looked at with admiration from an international eye. They have experience working with educators and system leaders in the public and private sectors in Australia, South America, North America, Africa, and Europe on innovation strategies that build capacity and encourage the design and implementation of new school models. Some consultancy examples include work with organizations like Aga Khan Educational Services, or AKES, the French Department of Education, West Australia Department of Education, Good Start Learning, the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, the Association of Independent Schools in New South Wales, Australia, and the Department of Education in the UK. Mr. Speaker, the role of the consultants will be to help facilitate and manage the school design process for the Bermuda public school system in tandem with leadership of the Ministry and Department of Education, the governance team, and stakeholder groups. Innovation Unit was very transparent in underscoring the need for the Ministry and the Department of Education to be committed to the redesign process from the start of the project to the finish. They emphasized that Bermudians are the guardians of the vision of the Bermuda public school system and essentially controls the direction of this system. As such, they expressed the need for established teams of Bermudians who will be dedicated to facilitating the engagement of the Bermudian learning ecosystem at all stages of the process, including the development of school and system redesign teams. Mr. Speaker, we will take ownership of transforming our public school system. It is important to understand that our future system will be designed by Bermudians by a consultation with Bermudian stakeholder groups, and these consultants are being hired to guide all the stakeholder groups through this change management process. The vision for public school education includes elements such as an internationally accredited public school system that undergirded by a culture of restorative practices, a school structure and day that is responsive to the needs of students, upgraded infrastructures and improved resources, international leadership standards for school leaders, enhanced teacher pedagogies, and the additional staff certification. Services, the phasing out of middle school and introduction of redesigned schools and specialized or signature schools, and improved leadership standards for the Department of Education. Mr. Speaker, for the past 2 weeks, I've held individual meetings with 14 stakeholder groups to share with them where we are with the transformation of the public school system as it relates to the execution of the two longer-term strategies in Plan 2022, which I mentioned earlier, and also to share about the hiring of the consulting firm to guide the system through this transformational process. Mr. Speaker, let me now share about the role of key stakeholders in this transformational journey. Many of you will recall the extensive stakeholder engagement that was undertaken during the development of Plan 2022. In addition to the numerous individual stakeholder meetings across the island, key teams were formed, the Ambassador Design Team and the Strategic Review Team, to review and design the plan based on the data obtained from community conversations. We intend to keep the same guiding principles of transparency, inclusivity, and engagement to redesign the public school system. This will directly involve our internal stakeholders, principals, teachers, and educational professionals in focus group sessions, and more broadly, education advocates and the general community in strategy consultation meetings throughout the process. Mr. Speaker, meeting with the 14 groups prior to today was deemed as a critical part of this first phase and sets the stage for the next phases. It was critical because it was important to demonstrate our commitment to transparency, inclusivity, and engagement in order to execute the transformative change our public school system needs. From our meetings, we were left with the impression that there is an appetite for change, and we all pledged to collectively work together to both pursue and achieve that change for the Bermuda public school system. While there were indeed questions at this stage that could not be answered, all acknowledged that this was a step in the right direction. There's much work ahead of us for the next 3 years as we work together. Mr. Speaker, the next steps in our plans will include the completion of the governance team. This team will be formed to facilitate the project management process and ensure the continuance of the school redesign project. The team will be led by Ms. Lisa Smith, the Interim Director of Educational Standards and Accountability in the Department of Education. Confirmed team members include Philip Butterfield, CEO of Bermuda First, Mr. Javon Roberts, the Deputy Chair of the Cedar Bridge Board of Governors, and Ms. Laurel Burns, mentor teacher in the public school system. We are currently looking to have other members join this team from both within and external to government. Mr. Speaker, the next steps in the transformation plan will include extensive participation and involvement of our principals, teachers, and parents, who will be key in helping to frame the redesign of the public education system. During the development phases of Plan 2022, our teachers and principals were authentically engaged in working strategy sessions using the design thinking methodology. This approach provided those two critical stakeholder groups with opportunities to contribute in a very meaningful way during the Plan 2022 project. Many teachers and principals were formally trained to facilitate focused how we can use that expertise already developed to facilitate sessions moving forward with this project. It is our deliberate intention to provide similar authentic engagement and working sessions during the system redesign project for both teachers and principals. Additionally, during the next few weeks, a parent survey will be launched on the ministry website that speaks to themes of school redesign and transformation models. The survey results will be used to help shape collaborative working sessions with parents to ensure that the expectation of parents on how we deliver education is captured moving forward. These types of parental engagement sessions will be an ongoing process during this transformative journey. We will advertise parent sessions on multiple platforms to capture wide participation. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I would like to emphasize that consultation and engagement will be critical moving forward to make this transformational journey a success. We will put our children and their future first. It only takes one generation to transform an education system. Let that generation be us, be all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. There are no further statements. We'll move on.
Reports of committees.
This report this morning is to be tabled by the Deputy Speaker. I'm a member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the members of this Honorable House of Assembly, the Standing Orders and Privileges Committee has the honor to submit the following report. 1, the committee held a meeting on the 2nd of March, 2020 to discuss and consider proposed amendments to the standing orders. 2, during this meeting, the committee agreed to the following amendment to the standing orders 1943. At the end add the words of any other motion except for the right of reply, which shall be 30 minutes. 3, the committee agreed that the Premier's question time is an important feature in our parliamentary proceedings and amended the set of guidelines for Premier's questions under Appendix B. These proposed amendments are as follows. A, the opposition leader may ask 3 questions only and is permitted to follow up supplementary questions for each question. B, alternatively, members of the government in opposition may ask 1 question and be permitted to follow up supplementary questions. C, responses to questions shall not exceed 3 minutes. D, Premier's question time shall not exceed 30 minutes and shall be separate and apart from the 60 minutes question time. Mr. Speaker, at this time, may I ask that we suspend Rule 38 in order to move and approve these amendments.
Members, the deputy has presented a report from the Standing Orders Committee and is asking that we suspend the rule to allow it to be approved this morning as it has been printed, as the amendments have been printed. And the reason would be today is the Premier's questions, and we'd like to be able to implement the amendments for today's session of Premier's questions. Members, any objections to that?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to comment on that, if you mind. My comment is I'd like for this matter to be deferred and that we have not had the opportunity to consider or discuss these amendments.
Any other members to comment? Yeah, yes.
Yes.
Minister, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to clarify, the honorable member that just said he asked for him to be deferred, doesn't he sit on the committee?
No, he doesn't.
Do any of your members sit on the committee?
Yes, yes. Any other members to speak? The honorable member Perry? And I'll add some clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd just be grateful for clarity as to why it's questions times, which is a limited opportunity for the Premier to give answers to members of Parliament, for ministers of his own government to be able to pose questions when they can ask him questions at any time.
Have a seat. No, that's a misinterpretation. Ministers may not ask questions.
So I understand you to clarify that it is not ministers.
Ministers do not ask
Grateful.
questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. And let me add a comment here, in that the last time that the ministers, that we had the Premier's question period, there were some questions that arose that day about the process. And at that time, I said, on the floor of the House was not the time to fix those matters. There's a appropriate place and forum for that to be fixed in. That would be in the Standing Orders Committee. The Standing Orders Committee met and discussed the issue. The amendments that are being put on the table this morning are from the Standing Orders Committee. The Standing Orders Committee are made up of representatives of both sides of the House, the opposition and the government. And the matters that were brought to the table were, in fact, when we left out of here from that last sitting, it was basically a one item that was outstanding from that morning. However, you see there have now been 3 items, and those items came collectively from across the floor, meaning from both the opposition putting input and the government putting input. And the Standing Orders Committee have confirmed that this is the amendments that they agreed to. And I would expect that if the Standing Orders Committee has agreed to these, then they reflect their organization, the government and the opposition. And it's been confirmed in a meeting. Since the meeting that the amendments were made, there was a second meeting that took place where the amendments were again confirmed as the matters that were agreed in the original meeting. So we're simply asking now, can we have the House ratify those questions, those amendments? And the amendments are, would you like for me to read them again for everyone's clarity? Okay. The amendment number 1, I'll put the first one down. It's a clarification of what was done in the past, but it speaks to the fact that the opposition leader may ask 3 questions only and is permitted 2 follow-up supplementaries for each question. That was just a clarification of what was already stated in the former standing order. The second point is that alternately, members from government and opposition may ask 1 question and be permitted 2 supplementaries to those questions. And again, only the member who asks a question can have a supplementary. Okay, and that says that the flow that will go from both sides of the House, the opposition backbench and the government backbench, and the opposition members can ask questions, not ministers, just for that clarity. The next amendment is, in response to the question, the answer cannot exceed 3 minutes. There was no time limit before. Now there's a time limit. It was now put in as when the Premier gets up to respond, the clock will go on and he'll have 3 minutes time to respond. If it goes after longer than 3 minutes, his time will have expired. The 4th amendment, it's in reference to the time allotted for the Premier's questions. Originally, the time for questions was 60 minutes for all questions. We were given 30 minutes inside of that 60 for Premier's questions, which left 30 minutes for any other questions, whether it be from written responses or ministerial statements. What we've done now is that we've given the Premier's questions its own 30 minutes outside of the 60 minutes. So the Premier will have 30 minutes, and then we'll have a full 60 minutes for remaining questions, whether it be from statements or written questions. Those members are the amendments that were made as a result of the last time we were here for Premier's questions, and there were some issues raised as to can we clarify the process. We took it to the right forum. As I said on that occasion, the floor of the House was not the forum to fix the amendments. It was taken into the right forum, which is the Standing Order Committee. The Standing Orders Committee met. They amendments. They met a second time to ratify or confirm that what has been printed is what was agreed in the amendments. And now we're simply bringing it to the House to ratify what the Standing Orders Committee has done. The reason we would like to have the rule suspended today, to have it ratified this morning, is so that we can use this new format in today's Premier's question process, as it's simply and as plain as it can be. Okay? Further question? I'll take a question. Oh, yes. Any other comments or questions? Well, one other point that I'd like to clarify is that when we met with the Standing Orders Committee, we normally sort of meet on a month-to-month basis, once a month, so to speak. These Premier's questions came up, and because of the budget sitting, we weren't able to meet when we should have met, so we didn't meet until 2 weeks ago, or last Monday? Last week Monday, we met. Knowing that today was Premier's question, on Wednesday, my office, Mr. Clark and I discussed and said, we need to make sure this is ratified so it can be implemented today, because the intent was to have it implemented so that it could be used for the next Premier's question, which normally would have been a month span, but there wasn't that month span because of the budget interference in between, interference. So the circulation went out asking that the committee meet to ratify what was agreed, and it was done for yesterday, circulation, and today the committee met on it this morning. So members of your party, if you may not have been informed of your caucus for that reason that it was going to be ratified today, but the amendments had already been made prior to this week. So I'll take a acknowledgement that yes, the circulation for the committee was done yesterday, but the committee members had already made the amendments prior to that at an earlier meeting that their members could have been informed that from that point of view. Okay, so do you have a question, Minister?
I have a statement and a suggestion.
A
Mr.
statement?
Premier. Yeah, I mean, you asked if anybody had any comments.
Comments. You have a comment, not a
Yeah.
statement, comment.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to remind members that this particular process goes both ways for all governments. Whoever the government is of the day, whoever the opposition is of the day, it's a good thing. If the OBA are in next time around, it'll be, it'll go that way. The other thing is, Mr. Speaker, I thought I'd highlight too is the oppositions, seem to have a problem with backbenchers on this side being able to question the Premier. Remember that members on this side of the House have constituents as well. And sometimes our constituents.
Yeah,
may
I think
want-
the question was in the backbenches. The question was the minister. That was I actually thought when the report was read out this morning, the members
Yes.
thought it implied that all members of the House had the ability to ask questions
Right,
of the Premier.
right.
And he sought to have a clarity on that. The clarity is that it's only backbenchers and not ministers, and they're comfortable with that.
Got that.
Everybody's
And-
comfortable with that.
And the other thing I would suggest, Mr. Speaker, I mean, hopefully now the opposition are in agreement, but if they're not, let's just take it to a vote.
Well, we're hoping that the House will unanimously agree that we can move forward on this, because the input came from both sides of the House around the table in the Standing Orders Committee. And I don't want to point out which came from who, but some of the suggestions out of this list came from the opposition, just like some came from the opposite, from the government side. So there was equal input from both sides of the House, from the representatives around the table who represent the opposition and the government on the Standing Orders Committee, which is the correct form in which this amendments should have been done. So are there any? Yes, ma'am. Yes, MP Pavlin?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wonder if, just for clarity, the honorable member, when he read the amendments, he indicated government and opposition. I know you've just explained it fully,
Mhm.
but is it possible to include in that government backbench and opposition so that going forward, there is no confusion as in terms of the intent? If we can have more specificity in terms of the language.
I note your point, but in the general format of that, it highlights that questions are not to be asked by ministers. But mhm. Members, I'm open to a suggestion. I'm open to a suggestion. And the suggestion is that under the wording, we can put government backbench, and so it's clear. Has anyone got it?
Mr. Speaker, may I suggest that we can accept an amendment to exclude ministers?
Okay. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. That'll address the same issue. So the deputy speaker has suggested that the amendment should just say that that ministers are excluded from asking the questions.
Or can I just, members of the government and opposition backbenchers. That's it.
Just to make it clear, we can just put in brackets after that sentence, excluding ministers. So it's very clear. There's nothing ambiguous about it. People can say members are all of us, whether be ministers or not. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with that, members, with that clarity of the wording, are we all okay with the process? And we will agree on ratifying it to this morning so that we can use the format in today's Premier's questions. Okay, do you need me to go through the four again? Okay. The opposition leader may ask 3 questions only and is permitted 2 follow-up supplementaries for each question. Alternatively, members of the government backbench and opposition may ask 1 question and be permitted 2 follow-up supplementary questions. In brackets, ministers are excluded from asking questions. 3, response to questions shall not exceed 3 minutes, meaning the Premier has only 3 minutes for each question to answer. And fourthly, the Premier's question time shall not exceed 30 minutes and shall be separate and apart from the 60 minutes for question time. Everyone's okay? Good. And I'll take that the House is in favor and it has ratified the amendment. We're good? Thank you, members. Appreciate. Now the next item.
Premier's question.
Thank you. We're now on the Premier, and again, for process, by members submitting a list to like to ask questions, and I've received the list this morning by the list that's been presented to me. Premier, this morning, the theater, honorable member.
Thank you, and good morning.
Morning.
And to Bermuda. My first question to our Premier, during the press conference that was given today and the note taken that shipping was not an issue, I was wondering if the Premier could explain to us exactly what he meant by shipping. And I'm asking that question because although ships may be able to come here, there doesn't seem to be any mention talking about plan for food security. So ships may come, but they may not have staple items. So if he could clarify that for us, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Premier?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as part of regular planning, It is made sure that we do have food security. These are not things that we just started checking on last or this week. It is stuff that since the beginning of the World Health Organization's issuance of a public health emergency of urgent concern, we have begun particular preparations. I'm happy to share because I have information from the Neptune Group Management, who's the manager for Bermuda Container Line, items which were sent to my office and said, this is to confirm the Bermuda Container Line has taken appropriate planning and prevention action to make sure the weekly New York to Bermuda shipping service is maintained. This includes proactive initiatives and contingency planning to minimize the risk of introducing the COVID-19 virus to crew and staff. Meanwhile, goods from New York continue to flow as normal. Import volumes are slightly up over the last year as importers appear to be stocking and restocking certain items. The Oleander vessel and our U.S. and Bermuda offices have their prevention and contingency plans that have been initiated. That is the basis, Mr. Speaker, on which I made the announcement that at this point in time, there is no planned and or expected disruption to our particular shipping supplies on island.
Thank you. Let me just, our clock and timing system is new. I didn't know if we can do the breakup of your 3 minutes and the 30 minutes. So the 30 minutes that's allowed for the premier for the premier's question started at 10:38, which means it'll end at 11:08. And I'm going to prefer to just keep the clock on the 3-minute timer, if you don't mind. Second question or supplementary?
Yes, supplementary. I was wondering also if, in addition to, we're talking about supply of food security, taking into consideration the potential of this particular virus and the medication that we currently stock on the island, is that also being considered as we look at the potential of having this virus here and being able to accommodate through the medications that are being used for this?
Thank you. Premier?
Mr. Speaker, the answer to the honorable member's question is yes, it is being taken into consideration.
Thank you. Supplementary or new
Yes,
question? Supplementary?
Yes,
Second sub?
Supplementary.
Yes.
We understand. I guess the question is, no, I'll wait for that. Sorry, I'll use this other one here. We understand that customs officers are not happy with some of the preventative measures that are being taken place down at the airport. And I guess what I'm asking the question, and that there is some timidity around asking the questions and taking on travelers. Is this to be the case? Is the Premier aware of this?
Premier?
Is this a new question or a supplementary question?
Supplementary.
Supplementary to the shipping? I'm confused.
Yeah.
Hold on.
This is all about, yeah, exactly. This is all about goods coming in and out, people coming in and out. So,
Okay.
yes, I did. And then I further went on to talk about.
Remember, just
And then I
provide
further
clarity
went
for
on
me.
to talk about the second supplementary question was about the drugs coming in, whether or not we've handled that particular situation. Now I'm asking the question also, I mean, you can come, I asked about shipping, what did he meant by shipping? He didn't qualify that. Shipping could be a number of things, also bringing people here as well. So I asked a supplementary question about customs
Mhm.
and people.
Okay.
I mean,
The question was,
me to put-
so the question is, are the personnel who are involved in the shipping happy with the process
It
that,
involves customs.
no, I'm saying, I'm just trying to clarify the question. So the question is involving the personnel on the shipping end. Are they comfortable with the process?
Yeah, no. Well, and I'll clarify the question then, since you're helping out. We are under, different supplementary. Considering the answers concerning the shipping, has the Premier spoken and had other discussions with the unions concerning the shipment of goods coming in, the handling of goods coming in, and in addition to that, the handling of people coming in and out of the island?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I have not had those discussions personally. We do have a quarterly meeting with the unions. There were some concerns which were raised. I am satisfied that the Minister of National Security and also the Minister of Health with the conversations of which were had with the stevedores on the docks regarding questions and procedures have satisfied those particular issues.
Thank you. Second question?
Second-
Yes?
Second question. We have information that, well, we know that many countries have banned those traveling from Italy and Spain from coming into their shores. We are aware that through customs coming to Bermuda, through the airport, that folk are coming from Spain and Italy via London, and then coming through customs to Bermuda unchecked. Are we looking to prevent that from happening, since they had been banned coming into other countries, considering the prevalence of the virus?
Premier?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not correct that the opposition leader will say that they are coming through unchecked. All travelers are asked a questionnaire upon their particular arrival. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that the Minister of Health has added Italy to the list, and also the Minister of Health has informed me that based on the recent advice that has been given, there will be amendments to the listed country for exclusions for entry into Bermuda of persons traveled from France, Spain, and Germany, in addition to Italy. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that it was an incident last evening where there was a plane which had come from from Switzerland through Italy. That plane itself had persons who had traveled from Milan, that those persons were denied landing in Bermuda. The plane they were not allowed to get off the plane. The plane landed, it was refueled, and then it went further. They wanted to stop in Bermuda, and we did not allow them to stop overnight.
Supplementary?
Yes, supplementary. I guess what I would like is, I certainly was not talking about that particular incident. I was talking about a prior incident. We know that nationals have come from Italy and Spain to Bermuda. I would like for the health minister, the immigration minister, to check into this, because it is happening for a fact. We know this. So please, if we're including, if they can let us know when they decided the ban on Italy, when did they decide the ban on Spain and France, if we can get that answer.
Premier?
The advice and the matter was published last night prior to this plane being landed regarding Italy. The Minister of Health informed me this morning that the additional countries which has come on the list are France, Germany, and Spain. What is important for the Leader of the Opposition to note is that the Ministry of Health is working off of advice that they are receiving. That advice is coming in. The situation is changing very quickly, and we're updating as quickly as the advice comes in, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary or second
No,
supplement?
years old, man. Didn't I use?
Yeah, you asked one supplementary.
Okay, that's
This is your
good.
second supplementary or new question.
No, that's good. That's good.
Second supplement.
He didn't answer the question, but let me just preface this next question by saying that I did meet, and I thank the Premier. We met this morning, just to discuss some of these matters. So I was very appreciative of this here, and I did let him know of some of my concerns. And so when I ask these questions, I'm not asking them because I'm trying to trip him up. We met this morning. It's important that we get as much information out as possible. And so when I ask the question that I know that these nationals have come from Italy and Spain to Bermuda, I'm asking them to check into it, because it has happened. It has happened. So I know they're juggling around right now, but it has happened. So my third question is this. The Premier also mentioned that contingency plans have been put in place concerning civil service. I was wondering if the Premier could explain exactly what he means by contingency plans to protect civil service. If you can explain that.
Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As I had indicated in my answer to the first question, when the World Health Organization declared that this is a public health emergency of international concern. Planning started from our perspective inside of the government. That means that, as I had mentioned in my press statement yesterday, the persons from the Emergency Measures Organization were embodied inside of the Ministry of Health. So the public health, with the public health emergency response team, there were additional resources that were brought on to begin the preparations for what was an escalating situation at that particular point in time. When that particular matter happened 2 weeks ago, I directed the Department of Information and Technologies to go ahead and prepare to have the ability for all government workers who work on a computer to be able to work remotely. I can confirm that that particular capability was secured and confirmed last week, Friday, hence the announcement which was made. And I can confirm that there are tests that are going on today for that remote capability. So that remote capability does exist. We have licenses for all workers who work remotely. We have licenses for all workers who use computers to be able to work remotely, and the testing of those particular issues are happening today.
Thank you. Third question now.
Yeah, I'm supplementary now.
No, you asked two supplementaries on your second question. This will be your third question now.
No, I went to my third question.
Third question. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Okay. Considering the civil service, I was curious as to whether or not, when can we expect that members of the civil service actually will work remotely, understanding that, as having been government before, we know that there are those right now who could work remotely to help with the situation. And considering this pandemic, is he expecting to have cabinet meet on a more regular basis, being that this pandemic continues to present challenges for all?
Thank you. Premier?
I thank the honorable member for his question. As I said, we act on the basis of advice that is received and following, as I said, inside of my discussion yesterday, the science. I can state that if there are cases of COVID that are detected here in Bermuda, we know that there are all the cases which have been sent off for testing have come back negative. Not suspected cases, but there are persons who have been tested and are monitoring. If at the points in time, as in the public health emergency response team yesterday, there are cases detected, we will begin to implement measures to contain community spread.
Thank you. Last one.
Yes. Considering that answer that was giving, Mr. Speaker, just curious as to whether or not recommendations have come. Can he give us an update on recommendations that potentially will be implemented that came from the medical council?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Health advises me that.
Thank you. That brings opposition leader. You've used all of your questions up this morning. The next member who has on the list is the Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, would you like to put your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Premier, what is the process for children that are sent overseas by the Department of Child and Family Services?
Premier?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for his particular question, because there are a lot of difficulties with this. And although members across the aisle are stating that these questions were answered in the budget debate, I think it's important during this time to make sure that those particular things are addressed. It is important that we understand the steps that are involved before a child is considered an applicant for overseas placement. The Department of Child and Family Services does not work in isolation when assisting children and families with their challenges. However, when all else fails, DCFS has a responsibility of developing and providing a solution as legal guardian of children that are placed in care. Often, the first issues are identified when a child is in the school system. This is often manifested in behavioral problems that impact the learning environment for that child and others. These behaviors often cause trauma to the system and DCFS is frequently contacted by the Ministry of Education of the results of disrupted children. DCFS conducts an assessment to determine what services are required and partners with collaboration with community partners, including counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, and agencies with the Ministry of Education, Child and Adolescent Services, Family Center, the Coalition of Protection of Children, Center of Abuse, etc. When considering overseas placement, all the assessment and treatment reports pertaining to the child are fully reviewed by the Psychoeducational Committee. The committee is comprised of senior representatives from the Ministry of Education, Child and Adolescent Services, and the Department of Child and Family Services. The committee reviews and approves applications for overseas assessments and treatment. Where there are several priority issues that appear to be causing challenge for the child and family, an application is made for an overseas comprehensive assessment using a comprehensive assessment team model. Once organizations have been identified, referrals are made, and if it is an overseas program that has not been previously used by the department or it has not been used for more than 3 years, the program is vetted by senior staff within the department. Vetting ensures the program operates at best practice standard with regards to its service provisions. The department's current policy dictates that all overseas programs must be licensed and accredited. Must be noted, Mr. Speaker, that any child involved in the psychoed program must be in care of the director. This is to protect the investment of the government and provides for family court oversight and accountability. All children in care of the director must have the permission of the court to travel, and DCFS must provide information as outlined in the Children Act before the courts, before the court will prepare the required order. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary? No supplementary, Deputy? The next person on the order this morning, on the list this morning, is the Deputy Opposition Leader. Honorable Member, put your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning. Mr. Speaker, my question for the Premier is, I understand that there are currently 30 beds allocated for any coronavirus issues. Is there an overflow plan if we exceed 30 beds? And if so, what is it? And is there an overflow location?
Premier?
Thank you for that question. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to answer to the best of my ability from my recollection at the Public Health Emergency Response Team meeting yesterday. What I can state is that the Bermuda Hospitals Board is making the adequate preparations of which are necessary. The Bermuda Hospitals Board has ordered additional medical equipment, recognizing that the virus itself, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19, is recognized to have severe respiratory issues as well. I do note that additional ventilators have been ordered to make sure that those facilities are going to be available at the hospital. Regarding overflow plan and overflow capacity, the Bermuda Hospitals Board has previously invested in, so we do have the ability to set up field hospitals if necessary and the equipment which are required for those particular issues should we get to that point. However, Mr. Speaker, what I must state is that as I issued very clearly inside of the Public Health Emergency Response Team, conversation, discussion with business leaders, etc., our complete and absolute desire as a government of Bermuda is to minimize, or as they say, to flatten the curve. So there is additional advice which is coming to us at this point in time regarding additional measures which may be taken. You would recognize earlier this morning, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister of Labor, Community Affairs and Sports had a press conference and where it was decided that the CRIFTA Games would be postponed. We are currently making a determination whether or not there is going to be any additional advice for any additional meetings and public gatherings which may be taking place here this weekend to be postponed. I've asked the Minister of Labor, Community Affairs and Sports to inform our department that the events which are taking place this weekend, including the Premier's concert and also the sports awards, which are supposed to take place tomorrow evening, may have to be considered to be postponed as well. I'm awaiting additional advice from the Ministry of Health. I must say, Mr. Speaker, in this answer, I have to do my job to commend the Minister of Health and the Ministry of Health, who have been working around the clock in making sure that we can be prepared and are doing this. They have multiple bits of information that are coming in at once, and they are trying to make sure that all these things are being collated. There is an entire team of persons that are working, and I was very impressed with that presentation, which took place yesterday. And I'm sure that members, when they get the presentation today at lunch, will also have a better understanding and recognition of all the steps which are being taken. Our job is to limit community transmission, and we're doing as much as possible in order to ensure that happens. But what I can ensure the deputy opposition leader regarding the particular question in which she asks, that all matters are under consideration.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Premier, for your answer. My supplementary is, in the event that the hospital does become overwhelmed, have we considered bringing in nurses and doctors? And if we do have to bring in other people, will work permit fees and things like that be waived in order to get them here quickly?
Premier?
I cannot state whether or not workers and doctors have been considered to be brought in. I do know that there are additional nurses which have been recruited inside the community, retired nurses, et cetera, who have been in health that are being brought on board to make sure that we have the capacity. This is not recent. These things were announced previously, and those things went into action when the World War public health emergency of international concern prior to the declaration that it was a pandemic. So these processes and plans have been going on since then. If I may, Mr. Speaker, at this present point in time, take the opportunity, as the Minister of Health has just provided me with something. The Medical Council, the Bermuda Medical Council, did meet yesterday. COVID-19 was the only agenda item, and recommendations were made to physicians and sent in an email regarding community care. These recommendations are similar to the recommendations which have already been issued from the Ministry of Health.
Thank you. Second supplementary?
New question, please.
You only got one question.
Sorry.
You have two supplementaries with one question.
I'll have it more then.
Okay? Two. Yep. That means they'll now move on to the next member who has a name on the list, and that's MP Terrell. MP Terrell, would you like to put your question?
Good morning, Mr. Speaker. My question basically was similar to the first question asked by the opposition leader. But if the Premier wishes to elaborate, I just wanted to get assurances that goods and items will continue to be shipped to Bermuda during this coronavirus issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I appreciate the question from the honorable member. The information of which we have right now is that shipping lanes will continue to be maintained. This is a rapidly evolving situation. I have no indication whatsoever that that will particularly change, Mr. Speaker, at this point in time. As stated, we can only rely on the information that has come in. It is not something that we just started doing yesterday. This is actions of which we have been taking for the last 2 weeks. And therefore, what I want to say, and this is something that is particularly important to note, is that we have this particular item. We are continually checking and making sure that we are getting the information that's updated. And I'm trying my best to prepare to present the latest information to members not only of this honorable House, but also members of the public. But at this point in time, we are confident that our supplies will continue. And as has been indicated in my answer before,
Yeah, talk to Zay. Talk to Zay.
you can't talk and listen at the same time, though.
Speak to the chair. You'll be fine. Just speak to the chair. Don't get sidetracked.
I'm just trying to be able to focus, Mr. Speaker.
I'm listening. I'm listening. My ears always here. You need to be
I'm having
speaking to.
trouble keeping my thought with all the chatter coming in
speak
the
to this
ears,
ear.
Mr. Speaker. Thank
Yeah.
you. What I will say, Mr. Speaker, is that matter will be continued to be monitored. What members will note is that the government has launched a new website, coronavirus.gov.pm, which has all of the particular information in it. We are putting out daily updates on that. I know that there are members of the community that are concerned regarding supplies and what's called. There is no particular need at this point in time. We are relatively certain that our supply chains will continue. And as has been indicated in my answer earlier, additional supplies have been ordered, not only for food and other items, but things that are needed inside the community.
Thank you. Mr. Terrell, do you have a supplementary or
Mr. Speaker, no. Thank you.
no? The next member on the list is that of the Honorable Member Gordon Pantolin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're going to change tack a little bit here from the challenge that we're dealing with as a country. But my question to the Premier is, given the changes to the standing orders that have been ratified today, will the Premier advise us what the purpose is of asking new questions when legitimately posed questions from July 26, 2019 remain unanswered?
that may be outside of the Premier's domain as far as some delay. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
In which case, I have
Yeah.
I have a different question then, if that is the case. If I wonder if the Premier could advise whether, given the extenuating is that we are experiencing, that we will experience with respect to the budgeting process, whether they would be prepared to support bringing a mini budget in 3 months' time or thereabouts, when we have a better indication as to what the financial impact will be on this worldwide challenge with which we are dealing.
Premier?
I thank the Honorable Shadow Leader, Shadow Minister of Finance for her question. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that I know that the Minister of Finance has had a meeting with the Shadow Minister of Finance to discuss the various options that are on the table from the government's perspective. I can state also that there was a meeting by the Minister of Finance with the Bermuda Bankers Association and also business leaders and union leaders yesterday, attended by myself, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Tourism and Transport, and also the Deputy Leader. What I will state is, Mr. Speaker, is that at the time that we come back from our recess, there may be the need to update that, and I'm sure the Minister of Finance will be happy to provide a particular update to this House. I also would like to say, Mr. Speaker, that given the rapidly evolving situation, there was advice which came out of the Public Health Emergency Response Team regarding policy matters where there may be a need to extend the session or to pass some emergency legislation to give the government additional powers in which to deal with matters which may arise. So that is something that is under active consideration and will be discussed in the Cabinet on Tuesday.
Thank you. Supplementary? No supplementary?
No
The next member whose name is on the list is that of MP Commission. We've got 2 minutes left on the clock. MP, if you'd like to exercise your question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have a non-coronavirus related question. I heard someone say that we still, even in this time, must be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. The question is, what has been the impact, Premier, of STEAM education implementation in public schools under the PLP government?
Premier?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank the honorable member for his question. And I think what is particularly important is that we recognize not only of the progress of which has been made on education matters in accordance with the Progressive Labor Party's platform, but also the announcements of which were made by the honorable minister in this House, of which I'm sure there'll be a number of questions regarding education reform, which is a particularly important topic. What I can say, Mr. Speaker, is that project-based learning is reaching all students, and this builds confidence and self-esteem. Students who are exposed to this education are more articulate, and this causes natural leaders to emerge. Students who do not usually shine academically are beginning to stand out due to the hands-on approach. The STEAM curriculum causes students to think differently and creates more in-depth understanding, and resources are readily available, and the program has an EIE curriculum, is currently in 10 resources are readily available, and the program has EIE curriculum, which is currently available in 10 primary schools as per the Department of Education's plan to phase out the program.
Premier, time has expired. It's now 11:08, and this will begin at 10:38. So 30 minutes have expired. And members, members, Minister, I'm on my feet. You either leave if you want to keep talking, or I'll ask you to leave. 1 to 2. Thank you. The Premier's question has come to a conclusion. We will now have the 60 minutes put on the clock for the regular question period. And there's the statement this morning that was given by the Minister of Education. There is a member who would like to ask a question of that. And the members, Cole Simons, would you like to put your question to the Minister of Education regarding his statement this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I agree with the minister in regards to an appetite for change in education. My first question with 2 supplementals is, who handled the RFP process?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the RFP process was handled through the Department of OPMP.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Can the minister provide details on the qualifications required for the bidders?
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned in the statement, we were looking for a team. The RFP detailed a team that had extensive experience in the transformation of educational systems. This particular team comes with over 15 years of such.
Thank you. Minister?
Supplemental?
Yes.
How many bids did they receive in regards to the RFP process?
Mr. Speaker, 3.
Second question?
Okay, that's my second question. Can he give us the estimated cost for each of the 3 bids?
Minister?
No, I cannot, Mr. Speaker. I do know that 2 of the 3 bids did not make it past the initial vetting stage that OPMP very rigorously has in place. And so we only ended up with the 1 bid that made it past the initial vetting stage.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary is, can the minister confirm that over the 3-year period from March to 2020, that the government will pay in excess of $2 million for the contract that they have with Innovation Group?
Minister?
Yes.
Supplementary? No further supplementaries? No further supplementaries. That brings us to an end of the question period. We'll now move on to the next item on the order today, which is condolences and congratulations. No member wishes to speak, we'll move on.
Matters of privilege,
There are none.
personal explanation,
There are none.
notice of motion for the adjournment of the House in matters of urgent public importance,
There are none.
introduction of bills,
Introduction of bills. I believe there is a government bill in the name of the Minister of Finance. Minister of Education, are you going to introduce it for him?
yes.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Speaker, I am introducing the following bill for its first reading so it may be placed on the order paper for the next day of meeting. On behalf of the substantive minister, the Minister of Finance, the bill is the Bermuda Monetary Authority Amendment Act 2020.
Thank you.
Notice of motions,
There are none.
yes, there is.
Oh, sorry. So you used to say no, how's that? My fault, folks. Premier. The Premier has a notice of motion. We're going to do that as well, Minister of Education. If you can find it. Okay. It's the ministers and members. Legislative Salary Pensions Act. Members, I'm going to ask that you allow us to proceed, and later in the day, we'll come back to this item. Thank you, members. The next order on the order paper this morning is the resumption in committee of supply for further considerations of the estimates of revenues and expenditures for the year 2021. And for the acknowledgement of the members of the public who are listening, you know, each day there are 8 hours set aside for the debate on the budget. And this morning, the first 5 hours will be for the education ministry to be debated. And then when that's concluded, the remaining 3 hours will be for the Ministry of Home Affairs. As you know, the speaker cannot be in the chair while we're in committee, so the proceedings will be in the capable hands of the deputy speaker, who will be assisted by a panel of chairs. And this morning, the first member of the chair will be Honorable Member Commission. And once the minister moves us into committee, the Honorable Member Commission will take hold of the proceedings of the House. Minister, would you like just to move us into committee?
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Speaker, I move that the following heads: 16, Ministry of Education Headquarters; 17, Department of Education.
No, not yet. The Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance should have a document that would take us into committee. Once that's done, then
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House now resume in the Committee of Supply to consider the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2020-2021.
thank you, Minister. Is there any objections to that? No objections? We'll now move into committee, and the Honorable Member Commission, you'll take the chair.
Are you ready, Mr. Chairman?
Morning, members.
Good morning.
Members, we are in the Committee of Supply, and we are in consideration of education as indicated, and we will be considering heads 16, 17, and 41. I now turn over the floor to Honorable Minister Diallo Rabane. You may proceed, Minister.
Mr. Chair, I move that the following heads: 16, Ministry of Education Headquarters; 17, Department of Education; and 41, Bermuda College, now be taken under consideration.
The member has indicated his desire to move, have those heads taken under consideration. Are there any objections? There being none, you may proceed, Minister.
Mr. Chairman, today I am pleased to present the budget of the Ministry of Education, which comprises of the Ministry of Education Headquarters, Head 16, the Department of Education, Head 17, the Department of Libraries and Archives, Head 18, and the Bermuda College, Head 41. Mr. Speaker, that is a typo. We are not doing Head 18 today.
Now I have 16, 17,
17 and 41.
as I indicated.
Yes, that's just a typo. Mr. Chairman, the 2021 budget for the Ministry of Education of $137,462,000 is found on page B144 of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2020-21. This represents an increase of $512,000 compared to the 2019-20 original budget. The current account 2020-21 estimated revenue for the Ministry of Education is $246,000. This estimate reflects a minimal increase of $3,000 compared to the previous budget year. The capital expenditure estimates for acquisitions and development increased from $2,687,000 last year to $2,810,000 in 2020-21. Lastly, the total employee numbers for the entire ministry dipped by 20 persons from 1,153 to 1,133. Mr. Chairman, research reveals that globally, education is the least reformed institution or sector. In fact, the average tenure of an education minister globally is 20 months. Education has become an established culture of fixed methods, fixed processes, and fixed systems. We recognize that over the years, our public school education system reflects such a state. However, this year, the Ministry of Education will be intentional in bringing about change in our public school system. Mr. Chairman, we recognize that in order for our public school education system to be both progressive and transformative in the best interest of our children, bold decisions are required that will break through the established culture, change fixed mindsets, and introduce a 21st century teaching and learning environment. The ministry departments and the Bermuda College, all of whom fall under the umbrella of the Ministry of Education, have been working together to create these progressive learning opportunities for our students in alignment with the change needed. Mr. Chairman, one generation. That's all it takes to transform our public school education. Successful transformation will take time, as it is a process, not an event. Ministerial and community support and participation starting from the very top is required. During the upcoming budget year, resources will be steered towards heightening the required change for the education system, and the external support will be essential. One generation is all it takes to transform education. Mr. Chairman, this morning, I commenced the budget debate by detailing the expenditure of the Ministry of Education Headquarters, Head 16. The mission of the Ministry of Headquarters, which is found on page B145, is to provide strategic leadership and policy direction for education and lifelong learning. The objectives of the ministry headquarters are outlined accordingly on the same page. Mr. Chairman, the ministry headquarters technical officers worked diligently during the past budget year executing on several policy decisions. These include the request for the proposal of the school redesign consultancy, the consultation process to determine whether T and Tatum Middle School should be closed permanently, the amendments to the Chartered Professional Accountants Bermuda Act to recognize the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACC qualifications as an alternative career pathway to becoming a chartered accountant, and amendments to the Education Act for modernization, which are still forthcoming. Additionally, the ministry set aside time to serve our young public school students leaders, Mr. Chairman. Last year, the ministry hosted its second annual Youth Empowerment Summit. This was a two-pronged event designed to provide public school student leaders with information that lays the foundation of great leadership qualities, accountability, compassion, communication skills, perseverance against all odds, and the importance of team building at school, at home, and amongst their friends. On the first day, over 120 student leaders, that is head deputy boys and girls from their respective schools, gathered at the Hamilton Princess Hotel. Mr. Speaker, I would just venture away from there to let my honorable colleague opposite know that also includes private schools. The day's activities were designed not only to develop our student leadership skills, but to allow them to reflect on what everyday leadership looks like. The workshop topics included handling conflict, effecting change, and interpersonal communication skills, which were facilitated by various leaders in our community. On day two, the Youth Empowerment Summit, the students were celebrated and recognized for their leadership. The ministry opened up the event to parents, teachers, and principals who were invited to share in acknowledging the leadership capabilities and achievements of our student leaders. Mr. Chairman, the Board of Education, which falls under the remit of the Ministry of Education, was tasked with a number of projects for the enrichment of the delivery of education in the system. These included searching the potential of creating new pathways to help enhance the recruitment and development of teachers, researching a tiered license structure for teachers, reviewing the master teacher designation structure, and providing a school registration process that will require all schools, private and home schools, to register on an annual or biannual basis, along with submission of yearly data. Mr. Chairman, another initiative introduced this previous year is the Father Speak series. Starting in February 2019, regular meetings were held to engage specifically with fathers with children in the Bermuda public school system. The purpose was to provide a comfortable and safe space for fathers to discuss fatherhood and their involvement in their children's respective schools. It is a mistake to believe that fathers do not want to participate in education, as they too play an integral role in their children's education. However, what we have found that when they are involved in schools, they tend to do most of the work behind the scenes unnoticed. From this initiative, we've also found from our discussions that our system can subconsciously exclude men from the conversations about children's education and automatically turn to the mothers. The Father Speak series is an opportunity to ensure that male voices and their perspectives are heard and taken into consideration. We want to ensure that fathers are supported in raising their children just as much as the mothers are. I'm pleased at how this series has allowed men to open up about their parenting, and I know it will benefit fathers and their children moving forward. Mr. Chairman, on page B145, you'll see that the Ministry of Education headquarters has been allocated a budget of $4,523,000 for the 2020-21 fiscal year. Within program 1601, Business Unit 26000, General Administration, $2,275,000 will support the operational and administrative functions of the ministry. This reflects an increase of $1,238,000 that primarily composes of the cost of professional consulting services for the undertaking of school redesign and the restructuring of our public school system. This is in direct alignment with priorities 1 and 3 outlined in Plan 2022, the strategic plan for public school education, which was developed by the Bermuda community. I will share more details about this initiative during the subjective analysis of the expenditure in the next page. Mr. Speaker, on the program 1601, Business Unit 26080, funds grants to external bodies, of which $823,000 has been budgeted. You will notice that there's a lower amount. You will note this lower amount reflects a decrease of $293,000. Earlier, I stated that more resources will be steered towards heightening the change needed in our public school system. These monies will be shifted and used for school redesign and restructuring initiatives. External grant applications are submitted to the ministry every year by various organizations who have developed educational programs and services for students attending both public and private schools. The ministry will continue to review each application on the basis of how the program and services are directly impacting students in that the metrics provided demonstrate that students are improving and achieving success. Mr. Chairman, last year, a total of $279,000 was set aside to fund a merit-based college promise program. The funds awarded public school graduates with a GPA of 3.0 or higher with a $5,000 scholarship to attend the Bermuda College. These monies were provided to the college on an as-need basis, with the implementation of the program for the very first time in September 2019. Although more than 40 students were eligible for the program, a total of 26 took advantage and are now enrolled at the Bermuda College with tuition and cost of books funded. In September 2020, we anticipate more public students will be eligible for this program and therefore have budgeted $250,000, which will be provided again on an as-need basis. Mr. Chairman, $1,424,000 has been set aside in Business Unit 26090 for the administration of the ministry's annual scholarship and awards program. This is relatively the same amount in the previous year and shows a decrease of $1,000 due to rounding. Mr. Chairman, in 2019, there were 389 applications received from students requesting financial support to support post-secondary studies. The Ministry of Education funded 12 Bermuda government scholarships comprising of new and existing scholarships, a total of 6 non-traditional student awards, 4 teacher education scholarships, and 38 further education awards. The minister's awards comprised of 6 minister achievement scholarships, 2 merit scholarships, and 2 applied technology scholarships, 6 exceptional student awards, 5 technical and vocational awards, and 6 Bermuda College Book Awards. The number of further education awards to students based solely on the financial need increased from 33 to 38. The minister's achievement scholarships for a graduating student from Cedar Bridge Academy and a graduating student from the Barclay Institute pursuing overseas post-secondary study increased from 4 to 6. The minister's technical and vocational award for graduating public school students or recent public school alumni attending Bermuda College and who are pursuing local or overseas post-secondary studies increased from 3 to 5. Lastly, the minister's exceptional student award for graduating students or student leavers with disabilities pursuing local or overseas post-secondary study increased from 4 to 6. Mr. Chairman, the $1,424,000 budgeted for scholarships and awards during the 2021 fiscal year will be used once again to reach as many students as possible and afford them the opportunity to pursue both local and overseas post-secondary programs of study. Mr. Chairman, on page B146, the subjective analysis of current account estimates is shown for the Ministry of Education headquarters. Line 1 salaries shows a decrease in $174,000 when compared to last year's budget of $780,000 to the 2021 budget of $606,000. The decrease reflects the removal of the permanent secretary's salary due to the centralization of all salaries for permanent secretaries with the Cabinet Office. Travel expenditure line item of $21,000 increased by $6,000, while there is no change in the budgeted monies for both communications and advertising and promotion. Mr. Chairman, the $1,607,000 has been budgeted for professional services in 2021. This line item increased significantly by $1,285,000 when compared to the $322,000 budgeted last year. Mr. Chairman, of the $1,285,000 increase, roughly $950,000 has been budgeted for school redesign and restructuring consultancy. A consultancy firm with proven experience in school redesign and restructuring has been contracted by the Ministry of Education to provide a change management methodology on how to transform the public education system. The transformative methodology will directly target the execution of specific strategies outlined in Plan 2022 under Priority 1, increasing academic rigor and student engagement, Priority 4, improving infrastructure and instructional resources, and Priority 5, ensuring system success, which covers the phasing out of middle schools and the introduction of signature or specialty schools. The consultant firm will work with a governance team and school redesign teams to deliver on the following adaptive transformational strategies for Plan 2022. Plan 2022 Priority 1, Strategy 1.1.4.1, which states to establish specialized schools in performing arts, science and technology, STEAM, sports, trades, and e-learning, or the projected needs of the community. Plan 2022 Priority 4, Strategy 4.6.1, make recommendations for the guidelines for modern educational facilities and the vision for learning spaces of the future of the public school system. Plan 2022 Priority 4, Strategies 4.4.3.5. Establish teaching standards in technology aligned with the vision for effective curriculum instruction. And assessment supported by technology established the means and methods to support teachers in creating and delivering digital curriculum. And finally, Plan 2022 Priority 5, Strategy 5.3.5, to ensure college and career readiness, review the current structure of schools, primary, middle, and senior, and revise the maximum student success, including the consideration of special school designs to meet unique student interests or needs. Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate, the $950,000 reflects the monies allocated to support the transformative work of our public school system and will be undertaken during the first year of the consultancy, which commences at the end of this month. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, the amount budgeted for rentals, the next line item of expenditure, increased by $10,000 to $15,000 in 2021. The majority of this expenditure will be used for the rental of halls to hold meetings with stakeholder groups and the general public, as there will be complete transparency during the school redesign and restructuring consultancy. Meetings will be held to engage stakeholders and community members to obtain input and feedback so that the informed decisions based on data and information are made for the transformation of the public schools education. Mr. Chairman, line items, materials and supplies and other expenses both increased by $5,000 respectfully. Materials and supplies comprise primarily of general office supplies, while other expenditures covers food and drink. The last line item in the subjective analysis, grants and contributions, was allocated a budget of $2,218,000 for the budget year 2021. This allocation dipped by $193,000, reflecting money shifted from the budgeted amounts for external grants, inclusive of the Bermuda College, to support school redesign and restructuring of the education system. A full breakdown of the $2,218,000 budgeted for grants and contributions can be found on page C18 of the budget book. Mr. Chairman, on page B 146, the number of full-time equivalents or employees in the Ministry of Education headquarters decreased from 7 to 6. The one less FTE reflects the removal of the post of the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Education to Cabinet Office. As previously stated, all permanent secretaries' posts are centralized with the Cabinet Office now. Mr. Speaker, finally on page B 147, performance measures for the ministry headquarters are outlined in alignment with the government reform initiative. The ministry's performance measures were revisited and now reflect a more comprehensive set of measures for assessing the work of the ministry headquarters. Mr. Chairman, the ministry team comprises of the permanent secretary, our senior policy analyst, the ministry comptroller, the scholarship and awards program manager, the administrative assistant accounts officer, and my executive assistant. All have provided me with excellent technical advice and administrative support. I am thankful to have a team of professionals who are hardworking and dedicated on delivering the ministry's mandate and policy initiatives, and in doing so, keeps what is best for our children at the forefront. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This concludes my presentation of the budget for the Ministry of Education Headquarters, Head 16. Mr. Chairman, I now present the budget for Head 17. The Department of Education. As I present the budget brief for 2022, Mr. Chairman, I also speak to the actions we stated that would be taken in last year's budget brief and highlight the Department of Education's priorities for the upcoming year, 2021. Mr. Chairman, the vision for the Department of Education is outlined on B 148. Is to see all students educated to lead professionally, personally and professionally, contribute locally, and compete globally. Mr. Chairman, this vision, thank you. This vision indicates that the department has had great expectations for our students and the futures in both Bermuda and the global community. Mr. Chairman, our vision for our students will be achieved through the operationalization of the Bermuda Public School mission to provide all students with equitable access to holistic and high-quality instruction, which is culturally relevant and empowers students to reach their full potential. Mr. Chairman, our mission and vision are components of Plan 2022, our multi-year strategic plan for public school education that spans from 2018 to 2022. Mr. Chairman, the mission and vision charts the pathway for Plan 2022 transformational and technical strategies which are executed daily and which enable us to achieve the 5 priorities of the strategic plan. Those 5 priorities are: 1, increase academic rigor and student engagement. 2, ensure career, college, and workforce readiness. 3, enhance the quality of teaching practice and system leadership. 4, improve infrastructure and instructional resources. And 5, ensure system success. Mr. Chairman, we are confident that Plan 2022, the strategic plan, which was developed through the collation of over 3,000 pieces of feedback from participants and stakeholders in a consultative process, and one that identifies the way forward for public school education in Bermuda, will transform public school education in Bermuda and ultimately lead to greater success for our students. Mr. Chairman, page B151 shows that a total of $113,781,000 has been allocated to the Department of Education for fiscal year 2021. This is $464,000 less than the 2019-20 fiscal year. Mr. Chairman, these monies have been preserved and moved to ministry headquarters to support the implementation of Plan 2022 strategies 5.3.5 and 1.1.4.1. The strategies that speak specifically to the reviewing of the current structure of our school system and revising it to ensure maximum success for students and the introduction of specialized or signature schools. Mr. Chairman, the Department of Education staff continue with the execution of the strategy supporting Plan 2022 and specific strategies that are also tied directly with their performance appraisal objectives. This is directly aligned to Plan 2022 Strategy 5.1.5, which states that we must ensure the strategic plan's measures of success and operational plans are clear, measured, and used for accountability. And it also supports strategy 5.3.3.2, which requires the department to, quote, focus on accountability by outlining delivery plans with clear timelines and identification of persons responsible. Mr. Chairman, last year, in April 2019, the department prepared and distributed its first annual report for Plan 2022 to inform the community, as promised, on the progress made on the first year of implementing Plan 2022. Mr. Chairman, the department is in the process of preparing the Plan 2022 annual report for the 2019-2020 fiscal year to be distributed to the community on April 24th, 2020. Mr. Chairman, I move on to highlight the expenditures of each business unit that falls under Head 17, commencing on page B 149. Mr. Chairman, I will begin with the analysis of central administration. This includes the cost of salaries of the administrative personnel and system leaders who function to lead, support, monitor, and audit the work that takes place at the Department of Education and in our schools. Mr. Chairman, monies budgeted for the upcoming year for Business Unit 27000, General Administration, will cover the costs for inventory purchases of educational and office supplies for the school year. There are $10,000 less budgeted expenditure for the fiscal year 2021. With improved efficiency and inventory control, this reduction reflects lower customs duty and transportation costs. Mr. Chairman, in last year's budget brief, I reported that we had completed an analysis of stores' operational efficiency in support of Plan 2022 strategies 5.3.3 and 5.3.4, and we would review the findings and develop a plan for the most efficient and effective way of delivering these services. We acknowledge the major support of the Public Works Estate section for the review and report. Mr. Chairman, we did identify our priorities, of which store staff have since reviewed the inventory for slow-moving and obsolete items to ensure that efficient usage of space and inventory, and where necessary, obsolete items have been disposed. Moving forward, this team will ensure that all purchasing of inventory continues to be purposeful and we obtain value for money spent. Additionally, Mr. Chairman, making adjustments to the quantity of goods purchased at any one time has enabled the department's facility section and Public Works Estate section to determine a new location for store staff and inventory based on real space requirements. Additionally, Mr. Chairman, the facilities and stores sections will work together to ensure consistency of cleaning supplies ordered and control on inventory quantities is maintained. Facilities will also add to their monthly inspection of schools' status of supplies to prevent stockpiling. Mr. Chairman, the stores section relocated to a new building the week of February 24th, 2020, and they will commence preparations for the count of inventory for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27001 holds the budget for the Office of the Commissioner and primarily funds the salaries of the Commissioner of Education and two direct reports, the Director of Academics and the Director of Educational Standards and Accountability. The Commissioner of Education and direct reports are responsible for the strategic planning, overseeing, monitoring, and auditing of the work of staff and holding staff at the department and in schools accountable for carrying out their duties and responsibilities. They are also responsible for collecting data and reporting on the performance metrics for the department, our schools, and Plan 2022. Mr. Chairman, this year, the department added the services of a communications consultant who will function to provide professional communication services for the department and schools. Mr. Chairman, the hiring of a communications consultant is a direct response to Plan 2022 Strategy 5.3.1, which mandates that we, and I quote, strengthen external communication and increase high-quality communication and public relations to all stakeholders. The communications consultant will develop and execute a communications plan as we implement Plan 2022 Strategy 5.3.1. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27030, Human Resources, funds the salaries of 8 professional, technical, and administrative staff in the Human Resources section. This section delivers human resource function and services for both the department and public schools, which constitutes over 1,100 staff. In support of Plan 2022, the Human Resources section will focus their efforts on improving operational efficiencies and improving service delivery as outlined in Strategy 5.3.3. Mr. Speaker, they will focus on the priorities for the new fiscal year. Number one, reporting on the number of teachers certified at each learning level, strategy 3.10. Number two, establishing recruitment guidelines for teachers, school leaders, and central staff office by including testing and maintaining certification and development in their area of expertise, strategy 3.6. Three, forge a partnership with the Council of Accreditation of Educator Preparation, CAEP, to establish a Department of Education list of approved colleges and universities for prospective teachers. Mr. Chairman, the Human Resources section will also be launching an online application process to track, manage, and process human resource needs for recruitment and leave management. Also, this online application will provide data including employee demographics, absences, leave, and assignments. This is being carried out to improve the service delivery as outlined in Plan 2022 Strategy 5.3.3.3, which states operation with planned and organized and a holistic vision and purpose rather than consistently reacting to immediate needs. Mr. Chairman, a total of $1,099,000 has been allocated to the Human Resources section to affect these changes. Mr. Chairman, the 2021 budget for Business Unit 27031, Staff Development, increased from the previous year's budget to $819,000. In addition to these monies covering the salary of a staff development officer, the funds will be used to provide a major source of funding for training and professional development arising from Plan 2022 and school improvement plans. The training, which is necessary to enhance skills and competencies for our teachers, educational staff, student leaders, and Department of Education staff. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27090, Education Standards and Accountability, has oversight of our 18 primary schools, 5 middle schools, 2, that's a typo, Mr. Speaker, that should say 4 middle schools, 2 senior secondary schools, and 1 special school and 2 alternative programs. The team comprises of assistant directors who supervise school principals to ensure effective leadership and quality teaching and services in our schools and for our programs. The work carried out by the assistant directors is essential to the growth and development of school leaders and overall school improvement. Mr. Chairman, during the 2019-2020 year, the implementation of the principal evaluation tool and ensuring that the teacher performance evaluation program was conducted with fidelity and with compliance to timelines was a priority for our ESA team. These achievements support the area of action in Plan 2022 Priority 3, strengthening educator evaluation and performance management. This priority also aligns directly with the government's education platform, which states a commitment to improving accountability in education. Mr. Chairman, the Education Standards and Accountability, ESA team, completed the development of a new school improvement plan that provides an authentic approach to school improvement strategy, which falls under strategy 1.5.2, and which is now being implemented by school leaders from the preschool to the senior level. The high leverage design feature of the improvement plan is to focus on intentional adult actions and implement those actions on student gains. This is stepped out by principals developing theory of action statements to guide them in achieving their identified targets and goals. Mr. Chairman, the school improvement plan methodology requires principals to report on student gains at 3 intervals in the academic year, so that the Department of Education can monitor student performance and gains over time, determine progress with key performance measures. Mr. Chairman, Education Standards and Accountability has used the student improvement plan, the student improvement platform, to connect the work of principals as leaders in managing change in their building, developing a purposeful community to achieve goals and focus on the work that matters for students. These 3 areas provide the parameters for professional development areas that support the school improvement plan in a meaningful way. Principals and deputies have been provided with professional learning opportunities and coaching as required to support their work on school improvement. Mr. Chairman, the school improvement plan, or SIPs, are in progress as of September 2019. Principals work with their leadership teams to develop school improvement goals for the academic year, and the expectation is that parents should know the goals and targets and provide support as appropriate. This achievement supports areas of action in priority 1, culture of trust and transparency. The school improvement plan is the platform to share the school's story on achievement and areas of improvement. This achievement is also connected to the area action in priority 3, professional learning and supports, strategy 3.11. The school improvement plans require principals to support the delivery of customized professional learning for teachers in support of the goals identified in their school's improvement plan. This is also connected to the government's education platform and its commitment to ensuring professional development for teachers to improve learning outcomes for students. Mr. Chairman, development representatives have been working with the Bermuda College representatives to provide a principal certification program. A successful partnership with Framingham University has been established, and we have 7 applicants who have been accepted into the program. The agreement requires a cohort of 10, and the process of extending the application to the broader community is in progress. This achievement is linked to the area of action, enhanced educator certification in priority 3, and supports strategy 3.5. This also supports the government's education platform and the commitment to ensure professional development to improve learning outcomes for students. Mr. Chairman, during 2021 fiscal year, the Education Standards and Accountability Team will 1, continue with these efforts to focus on mandating without exception the annual evaluation of all educators, strategy 3.24. Number 2, continue with the monitoring of school improvement plans, strategy 1.5.2. And 3, update and develop relevant policies to provide the enabling conditions for the proper operational management of this business unit. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27095, School Attendance, funds the salaries of a school registration and attendance officer and 4 school attendance officers. This is the responsibility of this section. It is the responsibility of this section to ensure that children of compulsory school age are in school on a daily basis. The school registration and the attendance coordinator oversee the annual school registration process for the enrollment of children in all public schools. The coordinator carries out a review of the registration process each year and ensures improvements in the process for the following year through consultation with the department and school leaders. Mr. Chairman, the coordinator requires monthly attendance reporting by the principal and conducts audits of school attendance data to determine each school's progress. An overall aim is to reduce chronic school student absences in alignment with Plan 2022 Key Outcomes 1.8. In support of the department's performance measures for school. The 2021 budget for this unit has been transferred to Business Unit 27090 and remains relatively the same as 2019-20 at $340,000. Mr. Chairman, the attendance officers have been more visible in schools and more accessible in assisting schools with attendance queries and concerns with the aim of ensuring that attendance data were accurate, reliable, and timely. Mr. Chairman, during the 2019-20 fiscal year, the attendance team saw a marked improvement in both the accuracy and coding of student attendance and areas the department targeted for improvement. Mr. Chairman, during the 2021 fiscal year, the attendance team will make addressing students who have chronic absence issues, that is, students with an attendance average of 90% and below, a priority. The team will transform processes and procedures focused on helping schools to meet Plan 2022 targets. Mr. Chairman, this team will also be launching an online school registration strategy, the first for Bermuda public school system. We must ensure that quality teaching, learning experiences, and services take place when teachers or other school staff are sick or on leave. The funds allocated in Business Unit 27160 substitutes has increased by $64,000. The overall budget for central administration programs is $4,782,000 for the 2021 fiscal year, which is higher than the previous year budget, primarily due to the increase in monies allocated for staff development and human resource services. Mr. Chairman, let me shift to program 1702, Student Services. The Student Services section facilitates the provision of 13 essential programs that directly provide services that meet the diverse need of our students who have been identified as having exceptionalities. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27061, Behavior Management, funds behavior therapists for preschools and primary schools, as well as one education officer for behavioral management. In addition, the funding covers our alternative education program, which facilitates suitable alternative education environments and services for students with behavioral challenges. The 2021 budget for this business unit will increase by $412,000. Mr. Chairman, many of our dedicated teachers are at times faced with behavioral challenges that go above what they can handle within the classroom. While the Department of Education has introduced a multi-tiered system of support program, we still find that some students require additional assistance. These students with severe behaviors and who will require periods of intense intervention will now be able to receive interventions at established support centers, one for primary students and one for middle and senior school students. $412,000 allocated in this year's budget to establish these centers will be used to hire additional educational therapists and a social worker. Mr. Chairman, this has been something our school staff and parents have indicated a need for some of our students, and we are responding to the needs of our students. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27063 includes our school psychologists who support administrators and address student needs in the areas of academics, behavior, and mental health. Further, the school psychologists provide comprehensive psychoeducational evaluations, consultations, short-term counseling, and interventions and preventative services across the entire system. School psychologists are engaged in and are a valuable resource for schools as it relates to the multi-tiered system of support, or MTSS. A Plan 2022 system priority for Strategy 1.4.6. The 2021 budget will increase by $105,000. Mr. Chairman, the backlog of assessments and wait time for psychoeducational assessments and services within a cluster of schools were reduced during the year. The upcoming fiscal year, the school psychologists will, one, establish an amalgamated record of student areas of deficit as identified through psychoeducational assessments, Strategy 1.4.2. Provide evidence-based support for appropriating educational resources and services based on that data. 3, assist students with identifying internal and external partnerships. Assist schools with identifying internal and external partnerships to address the academic behavior and/or social emotional challenges of identified students within the Bermuda public school system in support of Plan 2022 strategies 1.4.2, 1.4.3, and 1.4.7. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 2704064, the Adaptive Physical Education Program is a developmentally appropriate physical education program delivered by 3 specialist teachers. These teachers provide services to students with diverse physical needs by providing the adaptive support necessary to enable students to be included in regular physical education programs. Mr. Chairman, for clarity, the adaptive physical education lessons are implemented on an individual basis in small groups and within the regular physical education classroom setting. Mr. Chairman, students receiving adaptive physical education services also have individualized education plans, or IEPs, with goals and objectives which are in line with the regular physical education curriculum. Mr. Chairman, the most noted achievement of this business unit during the last fiscal year was the success of a National Track and Field Invitational Tournament, hereafter known as the Department of Education Adaptive Physical Education National Track and Field Invitational. Mr. Chairman, this invitation included approximately 72 students from P5 to S4 who've been identified as special needs and who receive adaptive physical education services. Individuals who have transitioned out of Bermuda public school system and who are presently at the Margaret K. Carter facility and other facilities throughout the community and who continue to need special services were also invited to participate in the invitational. Mr. Chairman, in alignment with Plan 2022 Key Outcome 1 through 4, APE teachers will ensure that 75% or more of the students receiving adaptive physical education services will be proficient in assessments in perceptual motor, balance, locomotor, and object control, and that 75% or more of the students will be proficient in assessments for low-level organized sports and games, and that 90% or more students in need of adaptive physical education services are identified and served. Mr. Chairman, APE teachers We'll also work on expanding partnerships with appropriately skilled and certified service providers, both government and private, to support student needs based on data outlined in Plan 2022 Priority Strategy 1.4.7. The business unit 27065 is the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, which employs teachers who provide students with academic instruction and who also collaborate with classroom teachers to ensure that teaching and learning are effective and that student needs are met during academic instruction in the regular classroom. $308,000 budgeted for this business unit, and that is for salaries, disability-specific resources and materials, hearing aids and equipment, professional development, and consult audiology services. Mr. Chairman, during the 2019-20 fiscal year, staff for this business unit implemented a sign language program for the entire school system to ensure that the school family can better communicate with the deaf and hard of hearing students at their school. In addition, staff provided excellent professional development to paraeducators who are assigned to students who are deaf and hard of hearing to ensure that the learning needs of students are met. Mr. Chairman, I can also report that student IEPs met compliance standards and audits carried out indicated quality instruction and student success. Mr. Chairman, line item 27066 is the Vision Business Unit that has been allocated a budget of $181,000. Students with visual impairments have unique educational needs. In order to meet their unique needs, students must have specialized services, books, and material in appropriate media, including Braille, as well as specialized equipment and technology to ensure equal access to the core and specialized curricula, and to enable them to most effectively function and compete with their peers in school and ultimately in society. The Vision program has maintained a good working relationship with our community partner, Vision Bermuda. Our students benefit from lessons conducted at the center. These lessons enable our students to use the many IT components and manual tools that are necessary for their learning. Mr. Chairman, as with the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program, staff for the Vision program maintained and produced compliant IEPs and audits indicating quality instruction and success for students in this program. Mr. Chairman, the business unit 27071, Office Support, serves as the Secretariat for Student Services section, and funds the salaries of the Assistant Director of Student Services, 2 administrative assistants, and 7 learning support teachers. The increase of $36,000 is due to salary uplift cost increases. The department's counseling services, the counseling program business unit 27072 is a comprehensive developmental school counseling program, CDSCP, based on an international model with 4 components. 1, classroom guidance core curriculum. 2, individual planning. 3, response services. And 4, system support. More specifically, school-based counseling programs provide early intervention, crisis intervention, and prevention, treatment, and promotion of positive social and emotional development. Mr. Chairman, this team of dedicated professionals also coordinates services with community members. With parental permission, school counselors consult with community mental health service providers to coordinate school counseling services with community-based services. The education officer for counseling meets the Department of Child and Family Services, the Department of Court Services, and the Department of Health representatives on a monthly basis to coordinate services for high-risk students. Mr. Chairman, this business unit funds the salary of an education officer for counseling and 15 counselors who service the pre and primary schools, the 10 at the middle school level, and 1 alternative school counselor. The increase in budgeted fund for $250,000 includes the hiring of 2 additional counselors for the support centers that will be established for children with behavioral challenges. Mr. Chairman, counselors are required to hold individual academic planning meetings with students in P5, M2, and S1 and S4. Mr. Chairman, last year, 89% of the students in P5 participated in individual academic planning meetings, with 14 out of the 18 primary schools having 100% of the students participating in the individual academic planning meetings. 1 primary school having 96 of the students participate in the individual planning meetings. Mr. Chairman, 88% of the individual academic planning meetings were held for our M2 students and 93 and 94 for S1 and S4 students respectively. Mr. Chairman, the education officer for counseling in consultation for school guidance. In consultation for school guidance counselors will continue to use survey data, Plan 2022 Strategy 1.2, and feedback to determine the actions to be taken to improve school counseling program delivery and to enhance student feelings of safety and trust. School counselors will continue to develop learning interventions, intentions, and success criteria in alignment with standard-based grading practices when delivering lessons focused on social-emotional curricula. And Mr. Chairman, this team of highly qualified professionals will assess whether the updates to the P5 and M2 individual academic planning meeting forms, the value, certification, and career intervention components of the form sufficiently assess students when preparing for the future careers in alignment with Plan 2022 Strategies 1.4.8. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27074 Learning Support funds 2 educational officers for special education and learning support, in addition to 65 learning support teachers who provide special education services at our preschool, primary, middle schools, Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy, and our trauma responsive programs at our primary and middle school success academies. This funding also includes assessment materials needed to ensure the appropriate diagnosis of students with special needs. The business unit decreased by $64,000, reflecting the regularization of duplicate learning support teacher posts. Mr. Chairman, I reported last year that the department will begin to focus on laying the foundation for the implementation of inclusive and special education policy and strengthen the framework to ensure students with exceptionalities have their needs better addressed. Mr. Chairman, efforts are underway to lay the foundation for the implementation of initiatives from the 2013 Special Education Discussion Paper and the draft Special Education Policy, which are both under review. Initiatives at the foundation level to ensure that staff are adequately prepared to demonstrate exemplary levels of proficiency in their performance standards, and that all individual education plans, IEPs, and individual learning plans, ILPs, meet compliance standards for quality instruction and related services. In addition, it is pertinent to deliver a mindset and systematic practices that are equitable throughout the system, ensuring success for all children using the processes that are in the MTSS framework. Mr. Chairman, the education officers for the special education are carrying out termly audits to ensure IEP implementation and documentation is evident for each student who is on an IEP. These audits begin in January 2020 and will continue each term. Evidence of the audits identifies the strengths and weaknesses in the system, thus allowing for additional training to support staff. Professional development sessions have been held with learning support staff to enhance their skills in writing comprehensive and compliant IEPs for quality instruction and related services. Writing comprehensive and compliant ILPs, individual learning plans with school teams. For quality instruction and related services, enhancing quality instruction by meeting the learning styles of children through tactile and kinetic materials. The role of the learning intervention processes, and follow the response to intervention processes for all students. Mr. Chairman, there have been ongoing efforts of the special education officers at the department in providing additional professional development services to learning support teachers in the following areas: learning styles and meeting the individual needs of students, creating a classroom environment that allows for student involvement and achievement, data collection, and resources to address student need in alignment with Plan 2022 Strategy 3.2.1. Officers also implemented an intervention program for students in the functional academics program at the middle level, creating systematic expectations for paraeducator journals and assisting with the completion of job descriptions for paraeducators. Additionally, officers conducted audits throughout the year to ensure IEP implementation and documentation and the provision of quality services. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, these officers a more efficient process for Cambridge assessment arrangements and exemptions to benefit our IEP students. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27076 reflects the salary of the educational officer for early childhood education and an operational budget for the early childhood section. Mr. Chairman, the budget for Business Unit 27079 increased by $370,000 and provides for the delivery of paraprofessional services for our students who have a diverse range of learning needs. The paraprofessionals provide instructional support, ensure protection and safety, and provide support for transition and life skills for students with special needs. This includes providing adequate support for students with physical exceptionalities, including deafness and visual impairments. Mr. Chairman, the department ensured professional development sessions designed specifically for paraeducators in September and October 2019 and January and February 2020 as per Plan Strategy 3.2.1, and that we now have an agreed upon and signed job description for paraeducators. Mr. Chairman, the department also plans to implement an online professional development program for all paraeducators for the upcoming fiscal year to continue to strengthen and hone their skills. Mr. Chairman, the Business Unit 27085, Autism Spectrum Disorder, or ASD, funds salaries for teachers and those paraprofessionals to serve students with autism within the ASD programs at 3 primary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 senior school. The funding also covers operational costs for equipment repairs, maintenance, and supplies and professional development. The 2021 funding of $786,000 will fund these costs. Mr. Chairman, the Business Unit 27084, Alternative Education, funds the operation of the Alternative Education Program and the 2 Success Academies. Funds are also used for the development of education partner programs with alternative program choices for our students. Mr. Chairman, one of the students at our primary level Success Academy has been diagnosed with selective mutism. When the student entered the program, the student did not speak and there was limited communication with students and staff. The team worked tirelessly to provide an environment which the student will feel free to speak. Mr. Chairman, the student is now speaking and communicating with all students and staff members at the program and the school. Mr. Chairman, let me also share about the achievement of students at the middle senior level Success Academy. 2 graduates from the program are experiencing success. 1 student met early requirements to obtain the GED or General Education Diploma, and the student will be enrolling in a program at the Bermuda College in the fall. The other student currently is in an apprenticeship program with a local business and working towards his certification in heat, ventilation, and air conditioning. And Mr. Speaker, just to stray away from my prepared notes, I spoke at the graduation of those 2 young men, and the looks on their parents' faces and the testimonies that they gave, because they just did not think that these 2 particular young men, 2 Black young Bermudians, would really get anything. And they were just so appreciative of the resources that were put in place to specifically go after them and meet them at the place that they were. And that was unfortunately not in our main schools, but we were able to provide the resources necessary to allow them to see that they can achieve. And I believe that these 2 young men will become very productive members of our society, regardless of the situations they actually did come from. Mr. Chairman, let me share about the achievement. Mr. Chairman, the Student Services Selection provides an extensive range of educational services for our students with exceptionalities. The total budget allocation for Program 702 for the 2021 fiscal year is $20,694,000. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to now focus on Program 1703, the Finance and Corporate section of the Department of Education, Business Unit 27002. This supports staff in the Finance Administration section. They include a Department Comptroller, Financial Services Manager, a Payment Supervisor, a Salary Supervisor, a Salaries Clerk, 3 Accounts Clerk, and a Messenger. This section is responsible for providing the financial service for senior management, cost-effective and responsible financial services in support of Plan 2022 Priority 5, procurement and contracting services, and corporate planning solutions to the department's management, employees, and schools. Under the direction of the department's comptroller, this department coordinates the payment of salaries of approximately 1,130 educators and department staff and pays all suppliers and vendors for goods and services purchased, as well as organizes the collection of receivables. This office plays a key role in finding ways to reduce non-instructional costs and to identify cost inefficiencies. Mr. Chairman, the Office Accommodation Business Unit 27003 funds the salary of the office receptionist, annual rent, office maintenance, electricity, communication costs of the Church Street office building where the Department of Education is physically located. Business Unit 27040 Education Stores supports the salaries of 5 staff. The store section provides centralized purchasing, inventory management, and distribution services for all public schools, the Bermuda College, and other government departments such as the Ministry of Youth and Sport. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27041 funds salaries for 3 bus drivers and 2 bus attendants who provide transportation for children who attend Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy and for students in our ASD program at different schools. Also included in these funds are the salary of 2 groundsmen, which maintain school sports fields, and 1 labor, transport, and safety officer. This section also funds the cost to maintain the department's motor fleet. Mr. Chairman, Business Unit 27042 Building, Grounds, and Equipment funds the salary of the facilities manager who plays a pivotal role in the school inspections and research of guidelines for providing modern educational facilities, as stated in Plan 2022. This budget also covers the cost of minor repairs and maintenance for facilities at all educational and administrative sites that fall under the Department of Education. These include preschools, maintained primary, middle schools, our special school, child development program, the alternative education and out-of-school suspension site. The increase in expenditure for this business unit of $98,000 will fund the salary of an assistant facilities manager. Mr. Chairman, the final business unit 27050 for the finance and corporate program is the information technology section, which consists of 1 IT manager and 9 offices. All preschools, primary schools, middle schools, and child development program have been upgraded and installed with increased broadband fiber optic networks. And the IT section is also carrying out an upgrade of the department and many of our schools' phone systems. The only remaining school is Dame Marjorie Bean Hope Academy because of underground capacity and existing cable issues. These issues are due to be rectified this month, and the department's IT section will complete the installation and have IT services turned up, given no major complications. Mr. Chairman, the IT section's use of network monitoring tools will also ensure that we get what we pay for and that the service level agreements that are enforced and service credits will be applied when out of the service level agreement ban, ensuring value for money spent. An IT strategy has been implemented to move from a distributed IT infrastructure to a centralized IT infrastructure. This means the entire Bermuda public school system and all support services will be running from 1 data center using common IT versus IT services in each location. The net effect is that fewer changes are required to make wholesale changes to the IT environment. This structure also enables the standardization of hardware, software, and IT services. The IT section will also implement processes and procedures to ensure high quality and delivery of IT services and customer services to the user communities. Mr. Chairman, business continuity and disaster recovery in a centralized IT infrastructure model requires a high availability data center. Also, to achieve IT services with maximum uptime or availability to the user community, redundancy in data center components is mandatory. The Department of Education now has a high availability data center. The IT section will focus on testing and incremental testing to ensure business continuity and audit tracking purposes. They will develop more efficient and effective channels using PowerSchool. Mr. Chairman, the IT section also configured PowerSchool for the application of standard-based grading, electronic report cards, and the upcoming online registration. In the upcoming year, this section will implement additional functionality in the areas of MTSS, learning management systems, human resources, talent management capabilities, ensure greater IT mobility and access to correct information for our user community as it relates to the Department of Education's website. And as it relates to the Department of Education's website, they will assist with the development of a detailed, enriched content, release additional functionality, and launch a mobile application for the site. Mr. Chairman, in summary, the Finance and Corporate section provides key services and support to our public school system and has been allocated $6,148,000 for the 2021 fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to page B150, the line item 1704, which is the program for our 10 preschools. The 2021 budget for all preschools is $4,874,000. 90% of the preschool budget funds salaries. 10% of the budget is used for resources, training, development, and operational costs such as electricity, part-time cleaners, phones, office equipment rental, and drinking water. Mr. Chairman, the first ASD preschool program was implemented at Prospect Preschool in September 2019, enabling the Department of Education to now provide ASD programs from preschool level to senior level. Funds from the 2019-20 budget were used to cover the cost of one learning support teacher and one paraeducator for the ASD program and training for the teacher and para in the CERTS, Social Community Emotional Regulation and Transactional Support model of early intervention. The model intervention is a research-based educational approach and multidisciplinary framework that directly addresses the core challenges faced by children with ASD and related disabilities and their families. Mr. Chairman, we have identified an online foreign languages program for the preschool level. The program will introduce preschoolers to 3 languages, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. The identified program is Little PIM, and once we complete the expansion of the internet capabilities of our preschool, we will introduce the program. Mr. Chairman, in the absence of a quality assurance officer for the preschool level, the work has been covered by the Assistant Director for Early Childhood Education. The Assistant Director of Early Childhood Education has worked to ensure that private preschools are registered and operating at a high standard. We will continue to focus our efforts to hire a quality assurance officer for the preschool level. Mr. Chairman, preschool leaders and teachers have engaged in significant training in the area of curriculum and assessment. The focus has been on delivering the preschool curriculum with fidelity and conducting a developmentally appropriate, authentic assessment of preschooler knowledge and skills through online documentation. In terms of the curriculum, preschool teachers have improved their inter-rater reliability across the Teaching Strategies Gold online assessment tool. As a result, preschools are now functioning as one system as they deliver the curriculum using the inquiry study model of teaching and learning. Mr. Chairman, last year I shared that we will be dedicating funds for literacy. As a follow-through with this, in September 2019, 127 copies of the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness Curriculum were ordered for preschools and primary schools in the Bermuda public school system so that every preschool, P1 and P2 teacher would have a copy of the curriculum to deliver in their classroom. Copies of the curricula for P1 and P5 were also provided for each primary school to use by either the learning support or reading teacher as an intervention for older students, and additional copies were provided for the ASD programs at the primary level. In addition to the scope and sequence of the program, the curricula would include daily lesson plans delivered across 35 weeks. All supplementary materials included teaching aids and assessments and are available for free download, helping with cost efficiency. Mr. Chairman, between October and December 2019, the curricular documents were disseminated and training around the program was carried out with preschool administrators, primary principals, P1, P2, primary reading teachers, and primary learning support teachers. Additionally, last year, we promised to provide preschools with professional development that will focus on implementing the creative curriculum, the inquiry model, authentic assessment, the SEEKS program, and training to strengthen the MTSS process for children on the autism spectrum. The department ensured that 8 days were dedicated to training. The training included videotaping of one SEEKS coach per preschool, and the video was for feedback. Feedback and coaching were also provided through group training sessions for peer coaching practices. Preschool coaches also provided support at their preschool for MTSS Tier 1 intervention, and the overseas facilitator came to Bermuda to make in-person observations. Teachers were again videotaped in preparation for coaches to support as well as explore SEEK strategies with their classes. Preschool learning support teachers also helped to provide this coaching. Then older coaches and the district coaches reviewed the teachers' videos. Teachers practiced coaching with their peers as well as utilizing teacher strategies. Capacity has been built within the preschool so that the strategies can be utilized on a regular basis with all preschoolers as a part of best practice. In addition, identifying children who needed extra support from classroom teachers were supported through SEEKS. Mr. Chairman, the next program is 1705 primary schools, for which we have a budget allocation of $29,474,000. Mr. Chairman, I reported last year that a total of $474,000 would be allocated to continue the implementation of standard-based education covering department and site-based professional development training. This work was done. In the area of SBG communication, there have been monthly newsletters to teachers and leaders and establishment of a 24-hour mail response system for stakeholders to communicate questions, queries, and concerns, and for the SBG Steering Committee to communicate weekly updates for SBG resources and professional learning. Mr. Chairman, a total of 16 out of 22 PTSA SBG meetings were held across the primary and middle school level to help parents gain a better understanding of standard-based grading. And 3 videos have been produced to assist teachers with how to input grades, create assignments, and log in and out of PowerSchool. A video for April 2020 Education Month for parents and educators is in the process, and an SBG Educator Parent Handbook of policies and procedures has been drafted. The SBG Steering Committee is presently soliciting stakeholder and groups' feedback. Mr. Chairman, as it relates to report cards, SBG PowerSchool Geeks researched and revised the SBG reporting system to make recommendations for PowerSchool and for the academic year 2019-20, and proposed a dual reporting system which was accepted by the Department of Education. The uploading of proficiency scales has taken place between August and September 2019, and we now provide progress reports online. Mr. Chairman, the SBG Steering Committee has also established HIS schools. HIS stands for High Intensity School Support. Schools had to make an application to become a HIS school, and there are currently 3 HIS schools: Paget Primary, St. David's Primary, and Victor Scott. These schools receive support from the SBG Steering Committee members approximately 3 days per week.
Minister, may I recommend that we break now? As you know, we have a major meeting coming up of both chambers, the Senate and the House, and we can resume right after lunch in anticipation of that.
So we're stopping at 12:25?
We're going to stop at 12:25.
Okay.
Are there any objections, members? None? Okay. Thank you so much. The House stands adjourned for the meeting and our subsequent lunch. Thank you, members.